Welcome back to the Decision 2024, brought to you by Valuetainment, where we pull together the election data week by week heading toward the election, and we let the candidates talk because words talk and numbers scream. I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc.
I'm Amy Dangerfield, and it has been a very dramatic week in the world of politics. Vladimir Putin has now endorsed Kamala Harris for President of the United States. Some say it's a positive, some say it's a negative, some say that he is playing chess while others are playing checkers.
I think it was a sarcastic outburst by Putin going into our debate week.
Speaking of the debate, Donald Trump debate with Kamala Harris prompts a major endorsement. What was that endorsement? None other than Taylor Swift. Maybe would have been a little bit more advantageous to do it a week or two before the election. We also see that Trump apparently pushes a baseless claim about immigrants eating pets.
Unsubstantiated is probably a better word.
Yeah, in Springfield, Ohio. We saw the way that went down in the debate last night. It obviously wasn't received very well, and the liberal media is using it every chance they get to try to discredit Trump.
So coming out of the debate this week, there was a lot of reaction. And part of the reaction was some people thought that Kamala Harris came off cold, had that condescending side glance, side eye going on, and was very obviously dropping some facts that were incorrect, but was not being corrected by ABC News. Other people were very critical of ABC News, saying, what is this? Is this 3 against 1? Trump's having to fight? Other people pointed out, hey, Trump was dropping some bombs that weren't exactly true as well. But overall, Trump appeared driven, direct, was triggered. In the post-debate focus groups, he did particularly well. But it's going to be the perception of what people saw on TV that they carry to the ballot box, or carry into the bounce coming in a week, because it's going to take about a week to get those polls out of the box. What did you think?
I thought it was very interesting. When we take a look at the debate altogether, I think Kamala Harris performed a little bit better than most of us would have expected. It wasn't the word salad that maybe we had anticipated. She was clearly very prepped. Some speculation that maybe she was wearing an earpiece. We won't entertain that idea too much until we have more substantiated evidence. She did answer the questions well, in the sense that she was able to deflect very efficiently. However, she didn't really get to the root of any of the issues that were being brought up, or provide any substantiated explanation on the way her policies are actually going to be better than the previous administration that we've seen for the last 4 years, Tom.
And when you wrap it all up, there were tweets, there was posts on Instagram, there were memes that were very sarcastic, and then there was analysis that was coming through of people who were trusted and informed voices who could be sarcastic, but some of them were actually to the point, such as Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, who lines up with Mark Miller quite a bit from Rasmussen, who lines up with us. We're all kind of cut from the same cloth in the way we're approaching statistics. But Rich Barris, he says, hey folks, the Reuters focus group of undecided voters broke 2-1 for Trump, with one still being unsure, so actually didn't go to Harris. And this is Reuters conducting, which is a liberal leading news organization, conducting a focus group of undecideds that they had handpicked. And guess what? 2 for Trump and 1 still undecided. Then a comment from Rich. David Muir of ABC, who interrupted Trump several times, attempting to fact check Trump several times. Hey, David Muir, prepare to be fired if the head of ABC, who's a close personal friend of Kamala Harris, draw your own conclusions there, and introduced her to her husband, Doug, concludes you cost her this election. So we've got facts and then hard-hitting sarcasm drawing on facts from people's personal lives. Very interesting. And so the bias that he had to face was tremendous. So speaking of Rasmussen, let's dive in to the Rasmussen numbers and walk us through it.
As we can clearly see, Kamala Harris has not had one day in the last several days where she has had above 46 points. On the other hand, we look towards Trump's numbers, and we can see that he hasn't had a day below 47 in the last several days. So while they do appear to be neck and neck, we can take a look at the overall aggregate and see, while this is changing daily, Trump does seem to maintain his lead, at least on a national basis, when it comes to Rasmussen daily reports. So now, as promised, we are going to take you through a deep dive through Virginia. Now, this isn't really a known battleground state. However, many of you in the comments have been reaching out saying that you want to hear our deep dive analysis on this state, that it could potentially be very competitive between these two candidates. So Tom, what does the Virginia look back to 2020 look like?
Well, Virginia really kind of looks like three states. You have the very dark red on the far west side, except for the city. You've got the lighter red in the rural east side, and then the dark blue of the cities themselves. So there's really three Virginias. There is more sparse population here, but they are fiercely conservative, a little bit more moderate, yet definitely conservative. And then as you can see, the cities, the closer you get, the darker it gets. But now let's look at the relative size of those voting blocks represented by the population bubbles. As you can see, there's tremendous blue population in Alexandria and Richard, with Roanoke may be blue county, but you can see it is more than balanced out by the size of the population in the rural areas, the rural counties. Similar with Norfolk and Virginia Beach. You put it all together, Virginia is an absolute battleground by population. Not surprisingly, it's also a battleground historically. And it has been shifting as the blue cities become bluer, specifically Virginia Beach. If you take a look here, 52.5 and 53.7 solid electoral victories, but then it went blue starting with Obama and stayed blue. Even with Hillary Clinton taking it in 2016, she took it with the continuing decline of the conservative red vote. However, in 2020, the decline was stopped as the conservative red vote was stable at 40-40. So this is a 10-point spread, 54-44. So why do we call it a battleground state? Because the polls are showing up now that it is no longer a 10-point spread. We take a look at the Virginia voters and issues, and what does it look like?
Out of a population of 8.7 million people, there are 6 million registered voters. It's a pretty impressive margin out of all of the residents who live in Virginia. However, much like the states that we recently covered in the Blue Wall, is that these voters do not register by party affiliation. Therefore, it is very important to look into the key voter issues that determine how this populace is going to cast their vote. And we can see here what is very important to them. There are some similarities to previous states, but also some very stark differences. For example, number one, we do have inflation and the economy. This has been a reoccurring theme, aside from when immigration was number one in a couple of states that we looked at, but everybody is feeling the heat of this economy, of inflation, of not being able to keep up with their bills. And Virginia is absolutely no different. So they rank that as number one when it comes to voter issues. From there, then we have education. And this one is a little bit different. It's education, Tom. It's the way specifically that history and race are taught in schools. This is very important to them as a state. And then finally, we do have immigration. Again, another common theme that we've seen throughout all of these different states. The heat index varies from state to state, meaning, is it in your front yard? Or is it something that you're kind of hearing about here and there? Is it really affecting your day-to-day? Well, apparently for Virginia, the answer is yes. It is affecting their day-to-day. The heat index is up high enough for this to fall as number 3 of the top-ranking issues when it comes to the people voting in Virginia.
And apparently in Norfolk and Virginia Beach, there have been excessive numbers of undocumented immigrants that have come to the U.S. that have been bused or flown to those cities, leading the Virginia people to say, we have a problem with immigration at the southern border. Why? Because once it comes across the border, it flies or gets on a bus here, and we're trying to find homes for them. They're part of the homeless population. There's crime that's being attributed to them, and there's no jobs for them. And so they're coming to the service centers trying to get welfare and social services. So you can see immigration suddenly comes up. When it lands in your front yard, it jumps up the list of things that are important. And it's not merely a debate between two people living in Michigan about whether there's an immigration issue or not. Then we go to the Virginia polls, and we just want to look at these last, because this is what was coming in to this week's debate. So the most recent polls we want to look at is the likely voter polls that are here. And what's very interesting is it's no longer 14-16, it is 8. there's a 10. And so the question that people are asking is Virginia starting to shift in the face of some of these issues, and is it a toss-up state? We don't think it's a toss-up state. We think right now it is leaning definitely toward Harris. However, with the results of the debates and what we see come out of the debates, as people have a more specific insight into who she is and how she has spoken during the debate, will this shift? We will know that in about a week, but we wanted to dive in Virginia to show you that even though there's been little change since the last election in which side is going to win it, the issues are changing and the margin is definitely changing. Could this go for Trump? It's possible, but right now it looks like it is a solid lean to Harris, and that's Virginia. Suggest states you'd like us to take a look at, because next week, based on what's coming out of the debate and what's coming out of the polls following the debate, we are going back to Pennsylvania for a deeper dive into Pennsylvania to see how it's shaping up to be what we believe the single most important of the battleground states.
Absolutely. And so now it's time for the Valuetainment Call. As you guys know, this is the culmination of all of the data that you just saw from all of these different polling aggregators, plus our own analysis run through VT Analytics to bring you our call 8 weeks from the election. So Tom, we're halfway through the series. What are we seeing right now?
Coming out of the debates this week, without any detailed polling analysis that may shape following the debate, we are still 72 to 76% probability that Trump will win the election, with Michigan still a toss-up, Wisconsin leaning enough that we could paint it, but you could see that makes this 297. With Wisconsin still a toss-up, this is 287, still well over 270, but this is the way we see the map shaping up, with Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada increasingly widening for Trump. Now, we're looking at this on the data the way we dive in, and we're following Rasmussen, and we're following On Point Politics, because they are running models that are very similar to ours. We have found a group of pollsters that we think are as objective as we are being, because we just want the truth. There's no profit in promoting a map that doesn't come true. We are looking at this to find what we believe with our VT Analytics engine where the election is going to shake out. And we think right now, 76% chance that it's 287 and a 72% chance that it's 297. But anything over 270 doesn't matter.
So regardless of how you felt about this week's debate, remember, words talk, but numbers scream. While there have been some snap polls released, we want to wait until next week to really dive into the hard-hitting data to determine how the people are feeling. What is the sentiment truly about this debate, and what is our next electoral map prediction going to look like? We're going to have to wait and see for that. But until next time, my name is Amy Dangerfield.
And I'm Tom Ellsworth, the Biz Doc. And on behalf of Valuetainment, who brings you the Decision 2024, we'll see you next week.